Ready for war. Ready for war. Ready for war. Ready for war. Ready for war.
This important call in Morden is from a person called Shirley. Shirley.
Yes. How are you?
Okay.
Okay, I'm just going back a few hours ago.
Yes.
Some of the things you said.
Couple of 3 hours ago.
Yeah. I want to know why you constantly criticise the Conservative Party.
You want to know why I constantly criticise the Conservative Party? Why I'm a big meanie?
Yes.
Well, let's see. They've been in power for the last 12 years. They've been in power for 2/3 of the time since the Second World War. So literally everything that is wrong with this country is their fault. So there's that.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I'm a child of the 60s.
Child of the 60s. Yes.
So I grew up in the 70s.
Yeah.
And I remember the lights going out. And we had nothing.
Right.
And I remember when I turned 18 and Mrs. Thatcher was in power.
Yeah.
I know you don't like that.
No.
And I got a chance to vote. I lived my life in the 70s and it was terrible.
Well, I lived my life in the 70s and it was...
Yeah.
It was... you didn't really realise how grubby and awful things were in the 70s until you look at a TV programme that was made in the 70s now. And it looks like... kind of looks like, well, not like Ukraine exactly, but it looks like a war zone. I mean, there's just rubble everywhere and everything didn't work and it was just rubbish, yeah. But that was the case in America and in every other country on Earth. That wasn't just Britain.
Anyway, I got a chance to buy my own property.
Yeah.
And then in the 90s...
So you're all right, Jack? Is that what you're saying?
No. I got a chance to buy my own property. And then in the 90s, I went through Blair, and we went through where I couldn't eat, nor could my kids, and I lived on credit cards.
So that was Tony Blair's fault?
Yes.
How so?
Because, let me put it back to the future now.
Back to the future.
I'm better now, but in every Labour Party, I've suffered.
Right.
With the Conservative Party, I've never.
You've never suffered under a Conservative administration?
No.
Right. Okay. Duly noted. Thanks a lot, Shirley. I mean, I could argue about that, but really, what's the point? Kettering. Hello, Steve.
Hi. What I would like to say is that what I understand about this is that Putin's worried about the expansion of NATO, and
That's
what I can't understand is what I don't understand is why NATO is not talking to Putin. That's what I can't understand, because it's frivolous whatever we do. Sanctions would take too long. Arming the Ukrainians to defeat, and a lot of warmongers, calling for this no-fly zone. Not at our own demise. Because what is the end game? Because we know Putin is unstable.
Well, do we though? I mean, I think he delights in perhaps giving us that notion, rattling his cage and saying, right, that's it, I'm going to arm my nukes and we're going to put them on standby. And really?
But if you think of it scares me. But
well, yeah, me too.
I'm looking at the world as a whole, and you've got to look at the risk. And as much as I would love to, try to help the Ukrainians, I don't know whether we can do enough. So it might be the case of what NATO is actually doing, sitting back and actually doing nothing. I know, as sad as it may seem, but would you want to lose your own life because of what's going on in Ukraine, or your families? I wouldn't.
Well, no, of course not. But what happens if we don't do anything? Then his next port of call will be the Baltic states or Moldova, probably. This tiny little bit of land to the southeast.
what I would have thought would have happened is that the president of Ukraine should have realized, and other states in that area should have realized they're in a very volatile region, and they should have remained neutral. They should have just given some reassurance to Putin that they will not take sides.
Well, no, that's an interesting. It's an interesting position to hold, Steve. Did you vote for Brexit?
No.
You didn't? Okay, well, a lot of people in this country did, enough to get us out of Europe. And what I hear from them is arguments of the same type that you've just given me, which means that they are arguing for a sovereign nation not being able to decide which international organisations it is a member of, which is a very weird position for them to hold.
Okay, so looking at the situation we're in now, which way would you have gone, knowing what we now know? I wouldn't want all this now. That's the way I look at the world as a whole. I'm all for saving innocent lives. And all I hear is a lot of people gearing up for for war, and it's not going to be just in one region. It will be a global war.
Yes,
and this is what I'm trying to avoid.
Yes, but your assumption, Steve, is that even if NATO had said we will never admit Ukraine, that would have satisfied Vladimir Putin, and what his actual aim is not removing the threat of NATO, because there actually isn't one. NATO is not an aggressive force. It's actually the reunification of the USSR and the reinforcement of his position at home. Maybe it wouldn't have made any difference one way or the other.
I can see your point. It's just not having a crystal ball to know.
Quite, yeah.
What the future may hold. Right. But I'm firmly believe that I think if people were to tone down the language, because I remember hearing on the news the president of Ukraine. Obviously, he's under an enormous amount of pressure, and he was demanding that Putin would sit down and talk. And he was saying, "Like, are you scared of me?"
Yes.
And I just think this kind of language should not be used.
Well, you know what? It's a bit difficult to criticise somebody's language when they're being fired at, when their citizens are being murdered, when women and children are being shelled. We're going to really talk about someone's vocabulary, their tone. I know you meant well, Steve. I didn't mean to snap at you, but thanks for that. Woolwich, Richard.
Good evening, Nick. Thanks for the opportunity.
Richard.
Nick, I had a reflection today, which was, of course, the BRIC pack. So the Brazilians, Russians, Indians, and China nations. Obviously, they all abstained, or in Russia's case, voted for against the United Nations recently, and all the other
China abstained, didn't they?
Yeah, China abstained, Brazil abstained, India abstained, and my question is, therefore, very briefly, is why are we not expanding our strategy and going after some of the emerging economies as well in terms of sanctions and forcing their hand? Because I think they need to make a decision. I know Brazil very well. The country I know really well is Brazil because I lived there.
Yeah.
And that awful Bolsonaro. Thankfully, his foreign minister went against his advice and voted and abstained. Otherwise, if it was up to Bolsonaro, he would have actually sided with Russia. Why? Because Bolsonaro is in Russia's pocket and in China's pocket as well. There's huge investment.
Well, abstaining is not a declaration of war. I mean, it's going to cost us a significant amount on top of the cost of living crisis that's coming our way, just in trying to extricate ourselves from dealing with Russia. If we try to do it with China, well, that would be the end of our economy, but nothing will work.
Don, there's always a flaw in my. You're so good at kind of like worming through and coming up with the flaws.
That's a very nice way of putting it, Richard. Worming through. Appreciate it. Thanks, mate. Streatham. Hello, John.
Oh, hello, Nick.
John.
I was listening to you when you were lost for words when the nuclear plant was being shelled. Yes, terrifying. I think Putin saw, in particular, our retreat from Afghanistan as a sign that we're weak and that no matter what he does, we won't do anything. And we appear to be, and I hate to say this to you, I'm going to say the T word, Trump, and before him Obama, and not George Bush, who was a war criminal, but before him Bill Clinton, those three American presidents, and without America, I mean, the rest of the world's nothing really, to oppose Russia, they seem to somehow be able to keep these global dictators, and in particular Putin, who's been there for 22 years now, in check. With Biden, and I'm not hearing enough criticism of Biden in the UK, I think Putin can sense we're weak. I think Biden right at the top said that we won't shoot. He said we won't shoot.
I don't buy that. I don't buy that. I don't buy that this plan came to fruition the moment that Joe Biden came in. This is a plan. This is a plan that Putin's had for decades.
Yes. I'm not saying that Biden came in on the 6th and then Putin thought I'm going to invade on the 7th, but I'm saying that Putin knows that Britain and America and NATO and the UN won't do anything, and we're not doing anything. And it's very sad to see.
It's not that we're not doing anything. I'm sure that he did not expect us to damage ourselves with these massive economic sanctions that we're imposing on him. I can't believe that he expected us to do that, because that is a show of unity, which he was, as you're describing, he was relying on us not having.
Why are we, instead of, the oligarchs, more oligarchs need to be targeted. When this collective punishment of the Russian people is coming about with the Visa and MasterCard and people who are on monthly salaries, is the naive assumption that they are somehow going to rise up against the guy who offs people with greater rapidity and the biggest gangsters? I don't think the Russian people are really... And it's the last point I can say. When Trump, and I hate Trump as much as you do, but when he stood in front of the UN and said that I'm going to destroy Rocket Man, that works.
No, it didn't. It did not work. It absolutely did not work. Kim Jong-un did not restrain himself. He fired more rockets after Donald Trump threatened him. So it didn't work. He was ineffectual in every way, Donald Trump, other than persuading people that he was a great leader who was effectual. The only thing he's ever done is to persuade people that he's a huge and tremendous person, while being the opposite of that. Liverpool, hello, Vincent.
Hello, Nick. How are you, mate? You okay?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Just listening to the lads talking there, I think that the people who are in charge of the Ukraine have got to bend a little bit towards him at the moment, because their people are dying left, right and centre. So they've got to bend. They're not, obviously they're getting a few weapons off people, but they're really not getting help. So I think they should, to save the people, even if it lasts 5 years or 10 years. I don't think he'll be around, and hopefully there's not another one to replace him. So I think that's exactly what you should do, bend a little.
Well, people say that, he actually has. He came out to Zelenskyy the other day and said, OK, well, I concede that we will never join NATO. I mean, maybe that was just stating the obvious, but it's one of the major demands of Russia. So you can say that's... If
he says that and it saves the people left, right and centre, it's worth it, isn't it, I think, Nick?
Wembley. Hello, Bill.
Hello, Nick.
Bill.
Good to speak to you.
Hello, Bill.
I'm looking at this thing with a different tact. I know the Prime Minister is showing a lot of great strength, but I think he would have been a stronger man if, when the Americans start doing certain things, to whisper in the ear, look, this might be a good idea to you, but if we go so far, then it could lead to unnecessary suffering around the world.
What do you mean when the Americans start doing certain things? Well,
things? If you see them getting ready to push people into certain situations, you should have the strength to talk them out of it and do it in a different way. Don't let them just carry on.
I don't know what you're talking about, Bill. What certain situations?
Well, when you see when you are building up the system in Ukraine and you're getting these threats from Russia, they should use a bit of tact and tell the guy, look, ease off a bit, let things simmer down a bit. Don't keep pushing because you know you have the ability and the strength to do it. Ease off a bit, let things ease off, and hopefully we can play this out with diplomatically rather than anything starting. Because if you push too far and the other side starts something, even the innocent going to suffer.
But when you
And that would be a greater show of strength.
I'm a little confused as to what it is you're saying that the Americans have done.
Right? Well, what on earth are we keep following the Americans for?
Following them, Bill. Following the Americans where? What is it that you're saying that they have done?
Britain seldom initiates any of these things. It's the Americans do, and then we support them.
Okay, Bill, I keep asking you to tell me what it is you're talking about, but you keep talking in generalities. I can't keep asking you the same question to be specific over and over and over again. So thanks for that, Bill. Better luck next time. Cheshunt. Hello, John.
Hiya.
John.
I think P&O have been losing money for years, and I'll tell you why. Because years ago, we used to be going get duty-frees, and you used to have thousands of people crossing over and coming back again to get duty-frees. And the government decided to stop that, so they should be partly responsible for the position that P&O is in at the moment.
Were you talking about booze cruises?
Yes, because you imagine the amount of people that used to go across, including myself years ago, to go and get cigarettes or drink or stuff like that, and they must have lost thousands with all the people that stopped going across for that.
Well, I don't know what the figures are, but I'm sure that there was some hit, perhaps, yeah.
And the government decided to stop the duty-frees and stopped allowing people to go over to do the booze trips and cigarette trips or whatever. But P&O must have lost thousands and thousands because of the amount of people, the customers, I call them customers, they lost going across the France and back.
Well, that's an interesting take on this, John. West Molesey, Chris.
Hello?
Yes, Chris.
Blimey, I nearly fall asleep. My original sort of inquiry was, can we not, if Putin's threatening all this nuclear stuff, which I don't think he's going to do, but can we not like do a bit of cyber warfare on him without getting NATO involved?
I would assume that that's happening already.
Do you think?
Well, I mean, it seems a bit of an open goal if somebody isn't doing something about that already.
But I mean, to knock out the communications between him and his army, kind of thing.
Right.
So then he can't communicate with them. Is that happening or not?
I have no idea, Chris. I would imagine
exactly.
that would be a secret.
I don't know either. I'm not a military expert, but if you get hold of one, because you probably got more chance of getting hold of one than I have, but to find out if that is possible, and also if he does go completely tonto or bonko, if he does start chucking out missiles with nuclear warheads on them, can we stop them? Can we, or Europe or the US, have we got the little defence systems to actually stop them in there before they get anywhere where we don't want them? Do you know what I mean?
I do see what you mean, and I don't know the answer to that either. But if I do get a military expert on the phone, I'll put both of those questions to them. Thanks a lot, Chris. Neaston. Hello, Lloyd.
Hi, Nick. How you doing?
Good, thanks.
I'm really, really enjoying the show. I'm so grateful that you had that American war veteran guy on, because some of the things that he was saying, it just seems so real, but I hear people get shouted down when they say, like the normal people like me, if I rang up and said what he said or alluded to some of the stuff, I just get shouted down.
Well, like what, though?
Like some of the stuff he said was just like what Peter Hitchens said, or Henry Kissinger said, or like Noam Chomsky. Like, this could have been avoided. There is no need for this. This is so horrible. It's like America and England or certain countries playing a game, but in the middle they're watching madness happen, but not on their doorstep. It just seems like a proxy war going on.
But it's not a proxy war. And saying that this this need never have happened achieves absolutely nothing.
But I think that's part of it. Like, if you acknowledge that, then you acknowledge that it can be stopped. It can be, like, the big boys need to get up and talk and say, stop it. It needs to be stopped.
Well, who would be the big boys in that scenario?
I don't know. I really don't know. But I'm listening to people say things like they're going to fight to the last man. They're going to fight to the last drop of blood. And then I'm hearing, the Russian economy is tanking. I'm thinking, well, what about the Ukrainian economy? That must be, like, are we going to sit back and watch this whole drag out till it just gets flattened? Each area just gets flattened while everyone's talking about no-fly zones. But he's flattening the country. Normal paint, like, I'm a painter. So I'm thinking there must be loads of painters and mechanics. They just want to crack on. They don't want to get involved in all this nonsense. But the guy said, people keep talking about a no-fly thing. Let's make the deal. Make the deal. When Peter hit, I listen to LBC all the time. So views like that you don't really hear. I heard Ian Dale on Question Time, and I heard Pete, and he likes to shout people down. I know he's not here to defend himself, but Peter Hitching said quite good. What he said, nobody on the panel interrupted him or said anything. That's when he named Noam Chomsky, Henry Kissinger. They all said it's ridiculous. Way before. I didn't realise, so I looked up all this stuff. When Peter Hitching on the programme said, Nick, and I couldn't believe this, I remember when Obama said something about we would be last in line for a deal if we came out of Brexit. Yeah. And the Brexit people freaked out. How dare him interfere? Peter Hitching said that.
Well, it perhaps wasn't interfering. It was just stating a fact. It does appear as though two presidents later, we are last in the queue as far as the trade deal with America is concerned.
Because he's going to deal with a big bloc as opposed to a small country.
Yeah, of course.
That's business. But Peter Hitching said Victoria Nuland went to Ukraine and encouraged a revolution that overthrew a legitimate government. I thought he was going to get shouted down. No one on the panel said anything. So I looked it up. I saw this woman in the street giving out sandwiches to people in a revolution, encouraging it. A big shot from America. I'm thinking, what would we say if that happened over here?
Right. Okay. But essentially, you're saying let's give Vladimir, just to stop this in its tracks, let's give Vladimir Putin what he wants, which is a regime change. But this is all predicated upon believing what Vladimir Putin says. I mean, this is what people like, the ones that you just described. They will say, well, the way to finish this is to just give Vladimir Putin what he wants. I mean, and they'll say, well, it's not completely unreasonable. He wants a buffer between Russia and NATO. He wants a regime change, which is more Russia-friendly. He wants the demilitarization of Ukraine. Just give him it, and then he'll stop the shelling. But that presupposes that Vladimir Putin is actually being honest about what he wants, and not demanding things that he knows he can't get in order to give him justification to continue what he's doing. Paddington. Hello, Richard.
Good evening. Yes, I just want to rebuttal what the caller from last talked about. Britain is not under any threat of attack from Russia. We've got something called Trident, which every now and again people say we should get rid of. A submarine is circling the British Isles 24/7. There's nuclear weapons. We've got independent nuclear weapons ourselves, and so has France. And also, the fact is that Putin has now started a fight with 1 billion people, and that is all the people of NATO. Also, the population of Ukraine. We amount to about a billion people, and that's a billion people economy. We're going to suffer a little bit. I hope we cut the oil off and cut gas off very soon. We're going to have to suffer. But we've been here before, 1974, when we had the oil crisis then. We've been here. Everything on TV, if you watch the History Channel, World War II non-stop. Why are we so fascinated by World War II? Because it is a lesson of mankind. This is where we don't want to go, and we would do anything to stop it there. But the spirit, I know they keep it, the spirit of the Blitz and everything else, but it's entrenched in our DNA. It's entrenched in British DNA to stand up for what's right, no matter what the cost. The cost of the World War II cost us the empire. Did we care? No. We had our freedom. It cost us in money. Did we care? No. We had our freedom. And this country stands up and is admired across the world. When did the Russians ever produce the Beatles? We have soft power.
Okay. All right, I think you've got slightly off track there, Richard, but thanks for that. Camberley. Hello, Paul.
Yeah, hi, Nick. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Yeah, just a simple answer. Yeah, well, we've decided that we've put an application in there. We have a self-contained unit down the end of the house there, and it's been lying empty. And we thought, obviously, I guess the opportunity was there to help the what's going on with the people in Ukraine, and we've decided to hand that over for as long as they want. So that was, I guess, it really comes down to what the government do, and the government have said this is the opportunity here. I mean, whether people would say it's not enough or it's too much or whatever, I guess it's something that I guess the people obviously are just trying to help out. That's where our stance on that. Yeah,
it does sound like an ideal situation you got there, a self-contained, like a granny flat kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like, yes, it is. It's down the end of the garden there that my mother-in-law used to live until she passed away about a year ago. And we had been using it like an Airbnb sort of a thing, but we actually cut that out because of the COVID sort of a thing. But it's been sitting there, and we thought just to do our part. I mean, people may think it's the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. I mean, it's something, I guess, anything to help out with what's going on in Ukraine. And, I guess where we are in the UK, I mean, if we can help out as a country, we can't help out with, I guess, no-fly zones and other things, but at least we can help out in, temporary or, rehoming the poor people over there,
Yeah, that sounds like the perfect situation you got there, Paul. So did you contact the government through the helpline?
Yes.
And what what happened?
Yeah, well, Nicky, it comes from the Michael Groves department there, and you just click on the UK government website, and it takes you to the link there, and you just add in your details there. It's a very easy thing to do.
Right. So
you just put in the first three initials of your postcode and how many you want, what sort of family you want, 2, 4, and if you have a two-bed, if you have a double bedroom or single bedroom, and then they will then obviously get back to you. That's the way it sort of works.
Okay,
it's very easy.
Right.
Very easy.
Okay. So the idea that you have to name an individual in order for them to be sort of sponsored by you, that doesn't apply from what you've done.
No. You just basically put the basic information in there.
Yeah, you're registering.
How many people you're willing.
Yeah, registering an interest. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, that's what we decided to do, and £350 is it's neither here or there. I mean, we're in a position where we don't really have to worry about that. So I don't think I'm not too worried about taking the £350. I'm quite happy to contribute that back to the, I guess, what's been happening over there.
Well, good for you. Thanks a lot, Paul. Cheers, mate. 0345 6060 973. Tunbridge Wells. Peter.
Hey, Nick. So very similar to the other call, I've done the same thing. Looking at 3 people, but I just find some of this narrative around the whole prospect of what's going on now, virtue signaling on either side, Nick. So I'm not talking about right wing, left wing, but I just find it's like, okay, all this stuff about oligarchs funding, money washing through London, etc., etc. Take all of that money, take all the buildings and put it all. It's probably a day's amount of revenue that Germany is sending directly to Russia right now, right this second. They're sending it. It's billions and billions. It dwarfs anything else. No one talks about it. They talk about, in 3 years going up. Someone like Merkel is responsible for this. She has not stopped that fine. That is funding, literally, as we speak, blood of Ukrainians comes out of Merkel's hands.
Well, yes, but the difference between what we're talking about with the oligarchs is that they are upending British democracy. What you're talking about is a decision that was made before this current war, and there could have been no real way of knowing that was going to happen.
Come on, Nick. You're trying to tell me that
when they made the decision to have that pipe put in before.
All the way along, everybody has warned them. Americans, some of the other Europeans, obviously us. Both of them telling you, over-reliant on a ruthless dictator. Straight after Crimea.
Pete,
Nick, don't forget she invaded.
All right,
they invaded.
But unfortunately, it's God's little joke that the areas on Earth that are richest in fossil fuels, oil in particular, are run by some of the worst people that have ever lived.
I know, but what I'm saying is, Nick, you've seen now that all of a sudden they can change their plan. So, and don't forget, Ukraine was invaded. People forget Crimea belongs to Ukraine. It was invaded. The response was, sure, we'll just keep paying you $1 billion a day.
But until we get mankind off this ruinous love affair with fossil fuels, where else are you going to get the oil from? Saudi Arabia?
No, again, Nick, they chose to shut down their nuclear power plants to fund the butcher that is Putin. Again, no one talks about, not one person, every single person you want to think about talks about the oligarchs, and I agree with that. What I'm saying is there is massive amounts of cash. Right now, Nick, as we're speaking, it's probably, since we had the conversation, Germany sent 100 million to Russia. I
understand.
Right now.
I understand that, but where are you going to get the oil from? If you got a choice of, some of the worst places on Earth, run by some of the worst people on Earth. You got Russia, Saudi Arabia, Canada, and everything they've got going on. I'm joking, of course. But until we get off this love affair with oil, then we're going to have to deal with all of these dreadful people. Let's have a call in Reading. Chris.
Nick.
Yes, Chris.
So Putin is either full of bravado or he's lost the plot, and we need to test his mettle. And what I mean by that is he's either going to stop at some point or he's just going to carry on progressing through the rest of Europe, and he's going to take countries that you've been talking about, Poland, Hungary, everywhere. He's going to take them. So we need to actually do something which is going to actually send a message to him. And sanctions are not going to send a message. They might send a message in a year or two when they've run out of their reserves.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So, they seem to be running out of their reserves at such a rate. They might actually be clean out of money in about a month.
They might, but they've been out of money for decades before, haven't they? Before oil and gas really made them rich.
Yeah, but the thing is, I mean, he built up his war chest famously to the tune of $650 million. Now, they can't get dollars anymore. So, I mean, it's actually really interesting what's happening, particularly with the Visa and the MasterCard thing, because while the...
So 650 billion, not million.
Yeah, billion, sorry.
I was going to say right. million, that would have gone in half a day.
Well, quite. But the rate at which they're spending money means that within about a month, that will be gone.
So, in that case, he's either going to absolutely go hell to leather and I have to back down. And he is not the man that backs down.
No, quite. So, but just think through what it is that you're saying. You can go through a country, but then what? It's the holding on to it part that's the difficult bit. And so he's going to hold on to Ukraine, which is a country that's 2.5 times as big as Great Britain. It's got 40-some million people in it, all of whom are not best pleased with being overrun. So he's going to try and hold... I mean, he's finding it difficult enough to seize it. So holding on to it is more difficult. So he's going to be doing that and entering other countries with receiving like enormous pushback in those countries. I can't see it.
He'll either end up with a civil war, he'll end up doing the absolutely horrendous thing of just destroying the country and most of Europe. So an extremely left field idea, which you'll probably laugh at, why don't we launch something at him?
Like what?
So I don't mean just us. A missile. Saying a nuke, doesn't know it's a nuke, and then drop it before it hits and see how he reacts. Because if we launch stuff at him and then detonate it, whatever the term is, it so it doesn't actually do anything, and see if he launches anything back, because he's already gone to Amber Alert or whatever it is. He said he's going to launch stuff.
Well, so
he's
he
at
says.
war with us.
So he says.
Yeah, so he says. So let's actually test him, because he can't back down. He's either going to have to come to some sort of compromise, which I think he's capable of, because he's nothing but a liar. Our Prime Minister, to be quite frank, saying that they're going to do 2 days of ceasefire to let these, civilians out of this horrendous situation. So actually, let's test his mettle. Let's launch something and decommission it and say this is a warning and see how he reacts. If he launches something to the world, actually genuinely concerned, it's the end of the world anyway.
Right.
So if we actually get to the point where everybody fires bombs at him and he fires bombs at us, there's two scenarios that come out that. Either the first person backs down and goes, okay, we've detonated them all. The person then goes, okay, I've detonated mine, let's stop and reset. Or they just go, haha, we've made a fool of you, we're still nuking you. Everything's gone either way, hasn't it?
Right, okay. Well, let's hope that there's a third option. Thanks, Chris. Pudsey, hello, Nadia.
Hi. Can I just... I was going to discuss the fracking business, but what you've just said, I agree with you fully. It not only kills children, the Saudi Arabian prince, but it also kills journalists, as we saw in Turkey.
Well, yes, just like Vladimir Putin, he does not suffer criticism.
Well, no, neither does China. There's a lot of countries, unfortunately, that will not, they can't take criticism of any kind.
Yep. The human race hasn't really progressed when you tot it all up. We're not doing very well as a race, are we?
Well, we could do. There was a previous discussion earlier on in the evening where the police were discussed, and I don't think there's anything wrong with somebody behaving for once like an officer and a gentleman of the crown, which the police is.
Right, let's not get stuck on the police. You were going to talk about fracking. Tell me what your ideas on that are.
I think we've known about this for years, at least 40 years. The Germans were way ahead in the race. The newspapers used to accuse us of being the dirty man of Europe. That was about 40 years ago. I mean, we've cleaned up our act, I'm sure, by now. But I don't fancy windmills at the bottom of my garden. Thank you very much.
Right.
Thermal
How about
fracking,
offshore?
however.
How about
thermal fracking? Thermal fracking.
How about,
I do agree with that.
How about offshore wind farms?
No, they're horrible. I've seen them. I've seen them up and personal in Germany. They're absolutely horrendous.
I don't think so.
Whether they're onshore or offshore, they're horrible.
I don't buy that. I think that offshore, they actually look quite nice. On some days, you find it quite hard to see them. You'll stare and stare and stare, and you just about make it out. And there it is, shimmering on the horizon, way out to sea. And I think they actually look quite nice. Onshore is a little bit different. I mean, people wouldn't want them right next to where they live. I think they do make a bit of a noise. But we have to give up the idea that absolutely everywhere in this country is an area of outstanding natural beauty and must not be touched, because it's not true. I mean, some areas, they're just fields, and we should get over it. Brixton, hello, Doris.
Sorry, I just had to laugh about that last comment, because I was actually trying to concentrate on what I was going to talk about in the first place. But after I've heard so many people's views, right, I might sound a bit ignorant, but if it does go to an extent of where it does become a bit Pete Tong kind of thing, and we end up having to leave our country, what happens then? That's what I wanted to know.
France would be the nearest place to get to.
France?
And perhaps they'll push us back out to sea.
Sorry. All right. All respect you, because I watched the war and what they do show you, and it has brought tears to my eyes. And I was even at the contemplation of saying I'd put up a woman and her children and whatever. But then I thought, then I'll be implicating myself then, isn't it?
How do you implicating?
Like, you are implicating yourself. It's like you're joining something. Now, supposing this man wants to decide with his biological warfare that he wants to try and get everybody after they've left the country, and like you were saying about put them all in one community, that would make it a lot easier for him to do. So you'd only have to send somebody in there with some kind of biological something on them, and it will spread to them, innit?
Well, that's... I hadn't even considered that, Doris. It just got worse.
You never considered that?
No, just when you think it couldn't get worse, it just did. Bolton, hello, Andy.
Hi, Nick. What I'm going to say, it's going to be unpopular. I think this war's horrific. Don't get me wrong. They are people. But, Nick, I was in a position a few months ago with a young homeless girl, and I'd love to have given her... I could only buy her some food, give her some money. My place is way too small for her to stay. I'm in my 60s, I'm a singer. But, Nick, they're talking about bringing this, but what about our own homeless? I'm going to see it again on Saturday when I go in Bolton. It's heartbreaking.
I completely agree, but it shouldn't be an either-or. Swindon, hello, Gary.
Hello. Yeah, right. Well, just thinking about what you said about the boat, what they just turned away because they had Russian gas on it or something.
Yeah.
I think what we should be doing, in actual fact, is not turning these things away. We should be capturing them and holding them in temporary suspension or something. And what if we didn't actually pay all these gas bills from Russia, right? What if we just didn't pay, but we continued to receive it? Is there anything like that we could be doing?
Well, the Russians can turn it off.
If they turn it off, though, then they don't make any money out of it, do they?
But if we weren't paying them any money, then they wouldn't be making any money anyway.
Yeah, but we could still get a bit of gas before they cut us off and save it up, couldn't we?
I don't really know how that works. Do you pay for it ahead of time? You would assume so. Or is it like a car? You fill it up and then you pay? I have really no idea. But it's an interesting thought. Thanks, Gary. Greenwich, Dean.
Hello, sir.
Yes, Dean.
Right, what I was saying earlier about Zelenskyy, she's a lovely, lovely gentleman. The world loved the guy. Honest, decent, passionate person. However, he is not a politician, and that's his weakness. Being honest and good and decent is not enough. And I think he got played by America, possibly Britain, in the fact that they promise help, which, honestly, they're helping, but not in the way he was expecting. And I think he took on Putin with the expectation to have more support.
Well, he didn't take on Putin. He just reacted to an invasion.
He probably would have taken a different approach to the threat of invasion based on how his capabilities were. And in this situation, he misjudged the situation completely. Because at the moment, he's crying out for help with the closing the airspace and other help, which it just wasn't happening because the West wasn't planning on offering that level of support.
But
he didn't realize
but he didn't. His initial reaction wasn't based on that because they didn't have that conversation. His initial reaction to to become the person that we are all impressed by was not based on his understanding of what the West's reaction would be. It was just an instinctual reaction to an invasion of his country.
But he was, since the 2014 invasion, annexation, he was promised lots of support from even America. And he was expecting more than he's getting. And that is why now he's screaming up, because he knew he wasn't in the position to take on Russia and to challenge Russia, because that was just a terrible mistake. And now he's sort of living that nightmare, and he's not getting the help. So I think this is an opportunity where the West, Putin has always been an enemy of the West. We know that. And it's a brilliant strategy if it is played out that way, where they're actually using Ukraine as the bait to bring down Russia by sanctioning and breaking the country as they're doing. Brilliant strategy, but I think Ukraine is going to come out very, very badly in all of this, and they did not see that coming.
Right.
And
When you say very badly, do you mean their reputation or just the fabric of their country? Right.
The country.
Right, okay. All right. Thanks, Dean. Carlisle. Peter.
Yeah, it's just an online thing. I think people are forgetting how to think for themselves or haven't been taught to.
In what way?
Well, basically, you're online, right? You're doing your thing, and there's various stuff comes up. Instead of just switching off, pressing the off button, they complain about it. Now, what's the point in complaining? You've already seen it. It's not going to go away. The memory's in your head. Why not just press the off button and go over there?
I don't think it's not the people complaining about it that is the problem. It's people seeing something that's patently untrue or damaging, and it firing the neurons in your brain, and you're wanting more of it.
That's where the thinking for yourself comes in. If you see something, check it. People haven't been taught to do this.
Right. Well, there is a failure of education on a wide variety of levels. I agree there.
Yeah. For instance, I'm not a big fan of the woke culture, but they come on and they bombard somebody. It's only a few individuals who are bombarding. The vast majority of the country couldn't give a toss.
Well, when you say woke culture, I mean, bells start ringing in my mind. What on earth does that mean? Woke is just being concerned for the feelings of others. You're against that?
I have no problem with the feelings of others, but sometimes things are going to be offensive. Okay, live with it. You know, for instance, as a quote on a separate channel, he thinks that the comedian has the right to be offensive, and you also have the right to not listen.
Yes, yeah? and the end of that argument is that you don't have a right to be offended and insist that the thing that offended you should not exist. Bushy, hello, Sav.
Hello, Nick.
Sav.
Okay, so I think you're being a little bit harsh on the Blue supporters, and I'll tell you why. A lot of my friends are Tory supporters, and every single one that I've spoken to over the last few weeks, even before the government turned around and said that they were going to invite families to invite people into their homes, refugees into their homes, we all said that whether a scheme like this came up or not, they were going to get in touch with people on social media and invite people to come and stay in their homes.
Well, that's great.
This was before.
What did they say about the humanitarian crisis in Yemen? Did they also want to open their doors to the refugees from Yemen?
Let me level with you. When we've spoken about this in the past, whether it be Syria, whether it be Afghanistan, people who come over on boats, we've always said, and these are friends who are Labour supporters, Liberal Democrat supporters, Conservative supporters, we've all said the same thing. Why do they not ask families to open up their homes? So, for example, I was talking to your colleague earlier, and the conversation went that I live on my own. So I've opened up my home. I've got a spare room in my home, and I've opened up my home to, people with mental health issues, whether it be males, females, short-term, long-term. And this is in the 16 years that I've lived in Bushy. So why would I not want somebody to come and keep me company? I mean, you said about keeping everybody in one area. The big problem we've got, and mainly in London, but in other parts of the country, we always complain that people stay within their own communities and they don't branch out, they don't mix with the rest of the community to obviously learn how to get on with people from different cultures, different races, etc., different religions. This is the perfect way to get people to mix with other religions, other communities, and not to get everybody put into one group, one social group. So you ain't going to get all the Ukrainians together.
I'm not sure I agree with that. And not at this moment. People are fleeing in fear of their lives. They're leaving their menfolk back. They may never see them again. They're in a desperate plight. I think I would prefer to be among people that I know and feel comfortable with, I have a shared experience with, and a shared language. I understand what you're saying, that some subgroups of society tend to close themselves off and only deal with their own. But that's not really what we're talking about here. We're talking about what hopefully for them will be a short-term stay in another country. And I'm not talking about creating a wall around them so that they can't mix with the rest of society. But I think if it were me, I would prefer to have some close contact with other people with a shared experience. But thanks for that, sir. Snodland in Kent. Hello, David.
Hello, how you doing?
Good, thanks.
Yeah, very good. Thank you for taking my call. Appreciate that.
Yes, David.
Yeah, well, I'm just a bit confused as to how people think we can just keep accepting more and more people into our country.
Okay, go on.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've got some 65 million people in our country already, in quite a small land space compared to other countries. So, how do we just keep taking more and more people? It's very nice people are saying they're sympathetic to the Ukrainian people. What about the Russian people?
What do you mean, what about the Russian people?
Well, I mean, certainly they're going through trauma at the moment as well, aren't they?
Yeah, I would think that the number of refugees is going to get much bigger because Russians are apparently leaving in large numbers. Yeah.
So then what? Should we just house everyone? What about like our old age people and our struggles with the NHS and all the things going wrong in our country? Why all of a sudden is it like current flavor of the month to, try to help out Ukrainians?
Why is it current flavour of the month? Well, there's a war going on.
Yeah, but I mean, certainly there's many old age people in this country that are not being cared for, and there's loads of people that haven't been diagnosed with cancer and all sorts of other stuff going on. If we're going to focus on spending money, why don't we focus it on our own people, not people from another country?
Well, it's undeniable that there's a lot of people in want of medical treatment, like you say. There's a homelessness problem in this country, difficult to get to GP appointments, and all of the things that you're saying are right. But do we have to fix all of those things before we help other people in desperate need?
Well, why wouldn't we look after ourselves first?
Well, that's my question. Do we have to do that first and then say? I mean, do we have to make this country perfect before we allow people in desperate need in?
Well, I don't think it's a matter of making it perfect. I think it's just a matter of if I want to go to the doctors, I should be able to get an appointment, which I can't really do.
Yes, but that's not a function of Ukrainian refugees because they're not here yet.
Right. No, I get that, but why are we focusing on another country's problems when we should really be focusing on our own problems?
Right. So I go back to my point that we have to make this country, well, okay, I'll substitute the word better for perfect. We have to make this country better before we allow those who are fleeing a war zone in.
Well, I think it's kind of where the latest talk of the month is to talk about the Ukrainian crisis. And I get it, don't get me wrong. I think it's horrible what's going on. So I disagree with all of it. I'm in no way, shape, or form a pro-activist for war, that's for sure. But certainly if we're going to be spending a bunch of money, shouldn't we spend more money on our own people?
Where were you born, David?
I was born in Southern California.
Okay. Walton-on-Thames, Reg.
Hi there. Yeah, first of all, I'd like to applaud, obviously, the 130,000 plus people that have signed up to do the refugee Ukrainian thing. But one thing, I've listened to a few shows now for a couple of days. No one's mentioned us and people, the homeless. We've got so many homeless people as well.
Yeah, that's the point that the last caller made, and I agree. Yeah, I pass them every time I come into London.
Yeah, I was homeless. I was set on the streets and that. And like I said, I do applaud what they're doing, but look after us before other people come over, sort of thing.
Well, I understand that thought, but it shouldn't be before. It should be as well as. We can do it. It just takes the haves to make it happen, without sort of putting the onus on the have-nots, which is the 90% of us. Thanks, Reg. Hatfield. Hello, Charlie.
Hello there.
Charlie.
Hi there, how are you doing today?
Yeah, good, thanks.
So, with the situation in the Ukrainian refugees, the government's offering £350 a month to take it in.
Yes.
Now, I don't know whether I see that as an incentive for the people to take them in, because if you're willing to take in a refugee, you're doing it compassionately, and you would hope that you'd have the resources to do it. You wouldn't necessarily rely on that £350 a month,
right,
to ask them. You'd have your own resources. You have
Oh, he just cut himself off. Mobile phones should come with instructions. It's true. Richmond, Vicky.
Oh, hi, Nick.
Vicky.
Hi. Well, you'll probably shout at me now, and so many other people. But in my opinion, I think that to have killed so many people, I don't think Ukraine has won anyway. And I think they should have really and truly surrendered right at the beginning and let Russia take over and then negotiated after.
Let them win and then negotiate.
Well, I mean, at least they still have a country. They haven't got a country now, have they?
Well, yes. I suppose there's some truth in that, but it seems like an extraordinary way to conduct your international affairs
I absolutely agree with you, but on the other hand, you've got two people fighting each other. One is really, really strong, and the other isn't so strong, but they want to be, but they're not. And I think to save so many lives, I mean, so many people are being killed on both sides, and now we've got the threat, I don't know, of it turning maybe into a world war, God forbid. And why? I mean, all they've done would have been joined up with Russia. I mean, Crimea hasn't had any problems, have they? And they've joined up with Russia.
Well, suppose Vladimir Putin's troops marched down Richmond High Street, Vicky. Would you then give up your country just because he wanted it?
I certainly wouldn't want 1,000 people being killed and my bombs ruining all the properties, yes. Providing, he wasn't going to destroy Ukraine, was he? He just wanted to have power over Ukraine.
Right.
I mean, I might be completely wrong. I'm not, I realise I'm not political and I'm not, highly intelligent, but I do feel very strongly that had they resisted in the beginning, this wouldn't have all happened.
Had they not resisted in the beginning?
Yeah. Resisted, yes.
Okay. All right. Well, that's an interesting take on it. Thanks, Vicky. Chelsea. Hello, Mark.
Oh, hello. The time-honoured question is begged now. When did the good White West, more importantly, how did it become the policeman of the world? In terms of what is really going on, I really have no idea. I only read the Times and the Sun, which incidentally come off the same press. We now have to be careful, as China is officially neutral, and according to the establishment here, in cahoots with Russia. To suggest that an Anglo-Saxon politician was subject to international law meant that the recently knighted Sir Tony Blair, to suggest that meant that one had a mental condition. It really is quite interesting that the promised theme park in the Middle East that flouts the Geneva Convention, human rights laws under the UN's own charter, documented by Amnesty, seems to be okay, and kidnap and torture without trial in Guantanamo Bay, and the release of innocent people with no comment seems not to be a war crime. So I'm just wondering, how dangerous is this? Forget the morality, and given, of course, centuries of genocide by slavery, Maoris, Aborigines, forget the past, because it is irrelevant, I'm told. I'm just wondering how dangerous this is.
Yes, well, there's truth in all of that, but it does come back to that is, you're talking about historical events, and if you get bogged down in whataboutery, then nobody will ever be committed for anything at all, because they'll be standing...
Are we continuing, if I may mention something else?
They'll be standing in the dock saying, well, I may have killed that bloke, but what about all the other people who have killed people?
Sterling work, so I mustn't make another comment. I'm not still on, am I?
It sounds like you.
Okay, perfect. So, if this becomes a war of proxy, I refer to what I just said earlier about how dangerous is this, and be careful what you wish for. If we are sending state-of-the-art weaponry there, do you think what happened before in Northern Ireland when Libya was an ally of the Soviet Union sending...
again, you're getting bogged down in whataboutery, Mark. Just because we may have acted badly in the past does not excuse anybody from acting badly in the present or the future. I understand that nobody's innocent. Selby. Hello, Paul.
Oh, good evening, Nick.
Paul.
Great night. Just got in. Fantastic. I really think it's about time that our corrupt government actually started to do something with the rest of Europe to stop this genocide in Ukraine. Yeah, they're talking about refugees and this and that. It just exaggerates how corrupt they all are. And these people, there's a genocide going on, 2022. Europe, never mind Americans, they're useless. Europe needs to get in, tell them to get out and go in there. Never mind a no-fly zone. Go in there and just push them out. Because it's got to be done now. Because never mind he's got nuclear weapons, Nick. So have we. And so has everybody else. You know, no one's going to use them unless they're completely mad.
Well, see, I think that's what Putin, I'm sure, is relying on, us not knowing whether he's mad or not. Because the only way that you would use them, as I said before, is if you were insane. West Midlands. Hello, Ranjit.
Hello, Nick. Thanks for taking my call.
Ranjit.
Yeah. Okay, this guy has been planning all the USSR since 1978, to be honest with you. You know, when they got beat by the Afghans, yeah? And now the genie's out the bottle. You know, when they say after a war, everybody sits down on a table to sign peace agreement. But this guy has put all that out the window, and I think we've got no choice, right? And I hate what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say we have to go to war with him, because the messages that Joe Biden has given him is that we're not going to interfere are totally the wrong messages.
Well, it's not just Joe Biden. It's all of the leaders in the Western world have said the same.
They have said that, Nick, but look at all... I mean, how can any person bomb a maternity ward?
Well, I was talking to Bill Browder, the oligarch hunter, last week, and he called it before it happened. He said that's precisely what Vladimir Putin does. That's his strategy, his normal way of playing these sort of incursions. He bombs hospitals first, then fire stations, said Bill Browder, and by that method you sap the morale of the people that you're invading. But it doesn't appear to have sapped the Ukrainians' morale, as far as we can tell.
No, he's pushing it further and further, right? You know, like when people were asking Jeremy Corbyn, when will you press that red button? He says, I'm not going to answer, because if you lay out parameters of when you're going to do something, then the other person knows how far to push you. Now, the whole of the world needs to tell Putin, you've got 24 hours to turn your tanks around. If you haven't, we're coming in for you. Right? That's the only way it's going to happen. He is pushing his luck to see when are we going to retaliate. And we are going to have to retaliate sooner or later. Because the genie, unfortunately, the monster is out of the bottle. Right? Unless, I mean, the people have been going on about this, that somebody from within his own ranks will shoot him. Yeah? I don't think they will, because he's got that much propaganda going on, right? And if you look at it with an open mind, Nick, as you always do, yeah, there are two sides to this story, but Putin's taken the wrong way out of doing what he wanted to do, because he did ask Bill Clinton if he can join NATO, and they said no. So NATO has been encroaching on him, kind of, you know,
No,
strangling him. It's wrong.
NATO doesn't encroach on anyone. If a country of its own volition wants to join NATO, then that's a matter for it. NATO doesn't invade that country. That country decides to join. It's completely different. But thanks, Ranjit. Doncaster. Hello, Tony.
Hello, Nick.
Tony.
I get the feeling that we've been led down a line of support where on the one hand you've got romance and on the other hand you've got apocalypse.
Romance?
And,
explain the romance?
Well, like supporting the underdog.
Oh.
The small country with the small army with no equipment to speak of is going to topple a big army with tanks coming out of the rear holes, planes, and all the rest of it, rockets. And it seems to think that we've, settled for the fact that the Ukrainian army are going to put up one hell of a fight against the Russians. But the truth of it is that at the end of the day, the Russians are going to win.
Well, it depends what you mean by win. If by win you mean take over a functioning country, that seems to be more unlikely by the day. If by win you mean create a wasteland, well, that is in their gift.
That's it. I think the Russians have decided to depopulate Ukraine, and repopulate it with people who are loyal to Russia.
Well, the depopulation part I can buy. The repopulation part, that's going to be incredibly expensive and difficult. There's going to be precious
because
little left.
Every city is just going to be reduced to a pile of rubble. Now, I mean, the thing is, isn't the sensible thing to do is to say to the president of Ukraine, look, this is the time to sue for peace, before thousands and thousands more Ukrainians are going to pay for this romance with their lives.
Well, you could say, you could describe it like that, but on the other hand, if Vladimir Putin was invading this country, would we say, oh, well, it's, you're stronger than we are, so we give in?
Yeah, but he's not invading this country, Nick, is he? What we're looking at here is we're looking at a country like Ukraine, which has been, in Putin's estimation, has been a provocation. He regards it as a provocation.
Well, yeah, we only know that because of what he has said, but are we to take what he says on face value? And if the Ukrainians did, as you say, sue for peace, would that satisfy him? Or would the next country be on his list?
If you remember back to last Sunday night when you had a very high-ranking British general on your show, and he basically suggested that the propaganda that we were being fed was not altogether accurate in terms of how well or how badly the Russian army was doing. Do you remember him?
I've spoken to so many people that I can't remember that specific conversation, but I'm prepared to believe that that is true, that what we're seeing is not the unvarnished reality, yes?
And it seems to me that, on the one hand, I think people feel as if they're doing Ukrainians a favour by offering them, all this voluble support. But in reality, they're just sending them into the mouth of hell.
Well, no, we're not doing that. They are choosing to defend their country. It's not because of our voluble support that they're doing it. They're not being egged on by us.
It sounds very much as if they are, Nick.
Well, I'm sure they're not paying attention to what we're saying, Tony. I mean, they may be listening to radios, but I'm sure they're listening to what they are saying within Ukraine to each other, rather than what we're doing on the radio and our politicians and so on. I mean, the president Zelenskyy may be hearing what foreign powers are saying, but I bet most of the people in Ukraine have more important things to think about than what we're saying. But I do understand I do understand your point, that in the best circumstance, if they just gave up, then the killing might stop. Of course, it might not. Stourport, hello, Dave.
Hiya, Nick. Couple of silly ones. Drones can be blocked by radio jammers, so they'll just hit the floor. But the silly idea I had was, remember in the good old days they did balloon drops, where you put your name on a tag, attached it to a balloon, and it went with the wind. Can't we get someone near Russia to send a few thousand of them over?
Well, it'd need more than 1,000, wouldn't it?
I said a few thousand, but, just a silly one.
Well, not really. I mean, every little helps.
I'm sure a few people would be interested in doing that, and it also could upset the aeroplanes in Russia if 10,000 have been set off and one of their planes hit them. It's going to bring it down.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, it might do just that. All right, thanks, Dave. Bromley, hello, Luke.
Hello, hi, good evening.
Luke.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Are we on speakerphone?
Yeah, I'm just taking your phone. Thanks. Sorry about that.
Uh-oh.
I'm here. How you doing?
Go ahead.
Okay, so my situation, my thoughts were, what would the world have been like if it wasn't for the war? Where would Trudeau be? Where would Boris be? Where would Macron be? Where would Australia be? The way they were treating their people over the pandemic, so-called pandemic. I wonder where they'd be if it wasn't for this massive distraction.
Well, Bodger would probably be, you know what, he's just so weirdly lucky. He would have probably slithered through those travails and survived. As for the rest of them, I don't know.
Well, I mean, you say Boris, but the others were far worse in the way they treated the people. At least Boris, made some whatever, as you mentioned. But look at Trudeau. I mean, he's suppressed the lorry drivers to get some good momentum.
Oh, please, those lorry drivers, do me a favour. That was the pretense of a grassroots campaign, where it was absolutely nothing of the sort. It was the usual right-wingers, the sort of dark right-wing money that was propelling them to do that. Something of the order of 85% of lorry drivers actually had the vaccine. What the hell were they complaining about? Propelled to do it. Nonsense. Don't believe a word of it, Luke. Concert. Hello, Sean.
Nick, mate, I've got a question for you. People on universal credit, I think it's an awful thing, people that fleeing wars and things like that. But people have got to see sense here, right? Universal credit is an income-based credit, right? Where they count every penny that comes into your house. Now, these people that are putting forward for these for Ukrainians, right? They are going to get penalised through child tax.
I'm not sure. I don't think that's true.
Housing tax, universal credit.
I don't think that's true.
Will penalise.
I'm not sure that's correct.
Yes, it will be. Yes, it will be.
But what makes you say that?
Every penny that comes into the house, if you go over a certain limit, you have to pay. I think that this is an exception. No, it's not.
Well, what makes you say that?
No, it's not. Well, why would they penalise it? Why would they turn around and say it's an income-based benefit?
Yeah, but this is an exception. It
doesn't make any difference, mate. It comes off your benefit. It will come off your benefit because it's an income-based.
I don't believe that's true, Sean.
Yes, it will.
But you're saying that as though you know what you're talking about. I'm afraid.
Well, I know what I'm talking about because I'm going to go over the limit.
Yes, but this is not counted as income.
Yes, it is.
You don't know that. Sean, you don't know that.
It's an income-based benefit, mate.
Yeah, I understand that, but this is not counted as income, as far as I'm aware.
Yes, it is.
You keep saying that as though you have some inside information, Sean. But you're just making it up. I'll ask my assistant. That is correct, isn't it? That this does not count as taxable income. It doesn't, Sean. So just calm down. Well, that's at least one problem solved. Watford. Hello, Barbara.
Hiya. Do you know, Nick, I'm getting confused what days it is.
I know exactly what you mean, yeah.
I come on this today and I thought, it's not Nick Abbott tonight. I'm getting a bit fed up with you. No, not really.
It's Saturday. It's Saturday today.
No.
All day long, Saturday.
I know, but the thing is, on a Friday, Saturday and Sunday, it's always a different show. Everyone has a laugh.
That's right.
Let's get back to this. I was up all night the other night. You know when all the nuclear went up?
Last night.
Oh, was it last night?
Yeah.
See, I've had no sleep.
Right.
I stayed up all night because I thought I'd have to go and tell the kids. Because at 1 o'clock it really sounded like it was bad. And it was all going up. Anyway, my daughter went shopping tonight. She got a load of nappies and went round people's houses asking them to give 20 quid like she was asking them for £10,000. But some of them came out and gave her like a £5 and a tenner. And she went out and bought £100 worth of nappies. Anyway, that's not really the point I was getting to. I don't know how these Ukrainians are going to come and live here. I would love them to. My daughter's got a 3-bedroom house and she's been told it's not big enough. She said she will put the 2 boys in together. They will sleep on the sofas and the mum and dad and 2 children can have their bedroom. But it's not good enough.
Who said that it wasn't good enough?
She phoned them today.
Phoned who?
And they want, and you have to go for a strict thing to say, you've got to have a clearance and everything.
Right. I missed. Hang on a minute. I missed what you said. Who did she call?
I don't know. I think it was the council actually.
Right.
And she said, "But how many bedrooms have you got?" And she said 3. So she said, "How many children you got?" She said 3. So she said, "What we decided to do was put the 2 boys in the attic room, which is quite big." And Maddie's only 14. She could sleep in the bottom of the attic. At the end, they could have 3 bedrooms up there. So the parents going to take over another room and give a family a bedroom where they could sleep, mum and dad and 2 kids. But no, it's not good enough. And what's going to happen when they go around all the film stars and they say, "Oh yeah, we'll take one." And when the authorities go around and they go, "No, this isn't a very good house. You smoke dope and you do all your stuff around it." No. It's bloody ridiculous, isn't it?
Well, it's a problem right enough. Yeah. Thanks, Barbara. Wilston. Hello, Paul.
Hello. I'm surprised a lot of people, that comment you just made just right now, I'm surprised a lot of people would rather take the chance of having a nuclear war with comments like that. I'm just sitting here just wondering whether it really is worthwhile just saying, well, okay, go in then and start lobbing nukes. I mean, the way I hear a lot of the people talking at the moment, Britain is only an island. Russia's a big place, and as far as I'm concerned, I think Russia's wrong for doing what they're doing right now, but at the same time, I think because of the fact that we've pushed in far enough, more or less, we might as well just go into Russia the way we've just gone so close to the man's doorstep, right? And he's decided to push a little way back in, right? And no one can actually see that or even wants to understand that, because I know if that was me and someone was on my doorstep, I would most probably try and push them back a little bit and say, hold on a minute, you're getting a little bit too close. But no one else is seeing that. I think everyone's saying, well, and another thing as well, war is war. I'm not going to lie to you. War is not a tidy business, is it? It never, ever will be, right? No one would expect war to be tidy. You can't... Listen, innocent civilians get killed everywhere, all over the world. We've seen this time and time again. We talk about it as if we don't ever see this. It's something that has been happening all the time. I've been to Afghanistan, I've been to Iraq, I've seen the same thing time and time again. It is no different to anything else. I don't know why people sit there and...
All right, okay. But, there's two arguments there. I'll take the latter one first. Murder happens all the time. Yes, it does, but it doesn't stop us prosecuting people for murder. And the first one is we've been... and it's not even we. It's a nation decides which, amongst the people in its borders, which international organisations it should be a member of. It's more like you dictating to your neighbour what they do in their garden.
Right. So when you decide that you're going to war, and you decide, right, okay, you know what, it's time to go to war. It's not classed as a criminal act, is it? It's a country deciding that's what they want to do. So they've done that. That's exactly what they wanted to do. But what I was going to say to you is this. I don't understand why civilians stay. I mean, if God forbid, that was happening here right now, I would hope that the people that don't want to be involved in that war decide to get up and go, unless they want to stick around to see what the consequences are afterwards. Because I do know that when you give people time to get out of a country, knowing full well what's coming, and you stick around to see what's going on, and then it's too late, you sit there and I ask myself this question: when these guys knew they were coming in, and we all know that the Russian military might is a powerful country, and I'm just sitting here listening to a lot of the rhetoric talk and all the big talk in the House of Commons about, right, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. I haven't heard any kind of diplomacy to tone it down, because personally, if anything did, just suppose, God forbid, one of them nukes did get here, right, that's the end of Britain. Anyway, if it did land. And the thing about it is as well, right, we don't even have any kind of air-to-surface missile to even stop a hypersonic. We haven't even put up no defences. There isn't anyone ever talked about it. All you guys have been talking about is all the political side of things and the money side of things, but you've not talked about defences because you've ignored it for so long, right? We haven't got any kind of defence anyway. The public haven't got anywhere to go.
Well, okay, you seem to be saying a lot of different things at the same time, that the public should get up and go, but they don't have anywhere to go. We don't have any defence. We spend something of the order of $50 billion. It's always in dollars. $50 billion a year on defence. But I understand your emotion, if not all of your arguments. Thanks, Paul. Birmingham. Hello, Asaf.
Oh, hello, Nick. Hello. Well, that was very interesting from Alison. And to be fair, I have to agree with a lot of what she said. I think I'll take it easy on you, Nick, but I think at the end of the day, this isn't a war we need to be involved in, and we shouldn't be involved in it. It's not our war. What do we owe Ukraine? Ukraine, whichever way you look at it, is former Russian territory. Now, we can do the right thing morally and say we want to be the world police and do everything right, but then we need to say that we don't actually have a dog in this fight.
Well,
so
we actually might, depending on what Vladimir Putin does next. I mean, if we don't provide the Ukrainians with weapons, if we've just done absolutely nothing at all, and it would have made Vladimir Putin's job much easier, because he wouldn't have had to, suffer all these losses at the hands of Western equipment. Then what? Was he going to be completely satisfied just with Ukraine? I mean, it seems possible that the war, if it is not stopped one way or another in Ukraine, would have just continued, and then it would eventually have been our problem.
That's a great point you made, Nick, about how obviously all the fighting going on in Ukraine right now, it's done at the behest of our munitions and our guns and our bombs. But I don't seem to follow you, Nick, because from what I understand, in a corollary to what Alison is saying, the only reason why I think Putin's invaded Ukraine is because it was the last door next to Russia, which is going to become a NATO country. So,
you're taking him at his word. This is a man who promised who told everybody that he wasn't going to invade Ukraine. How can you take him at his word? I'm not going to invade Ukraine, he said. And then he did. He's as reliable as Boris Johnson. Ruislip. Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Nick. Long time. there was a lot of, this human rights legislation was brought in post-war when you had vast movements of people across Europe. And, that's what's happening again. But, we have the Channel crossings, about 90,000 are estimated to come this year. We're more economic refugees. You hop on a dinghy and these people are coming, just women and children. I think the whole government policy is a mess. It needs to be a reversal straight away. But, you've got a declining standard of living here and everything. So there's a lot of crises coming together at once, at the same time.
I don't know, where do you get the 90,000 crossing the channel from?
That was an estimate given on last year's number, in the first month of January. Whether that's going to be right or not.
But last year's numbers was about 28,000. 90,000 seems a bit of a jump.
Treble that, but that's what they're estimating at the end of this year. One of your presenters that used to work on your channel, I think Nigel, he came up with those figures, didn't he? From some immigration watch or something. They had them.
I think you're actually a year out. The numbers coming in 2021 were triple the numbers that came in 2020. Not that this year they will be triple what came in 2021, which was 28,000. So I think your figures are like a year out. It's not perhaps as bad as you're thinking, Kevin. But when you say, hang on a minute, when you say that the government should reverse its policy, what policy are you referring to?
Well, I think they should. They say they want to let 200,000 Ukrainians in. They should give them the green light and let them come.
Right. Okay, thanks, Kevin. Keel, Leeds.
All right, mate.
Leeds.
I'm a truck driver.
You're a truck driver? Well done.
Yeah. Class 1, ADR, done it for 40 years. Right, and you're going about wind power and all that, but end of the day, I'm home now. I normally listen to you when I'm at work, but I've got COVID. I picked it up, God knows where I picked it up from.
Yeah.
But normally, if they lad don't fill the truck up, right, put about 400-500 quid's worth of diesel in a day, every day.
Wow.
If they're lazy sod. As I get out of the truck, it's 20 minutes it's stood, and he gets in, and it's going. And we've got about, God knows how many trucks going like that all the time. So, I understand about your wind and power, but when it comes down to it, right, if you're going to ration fuel and diesel, what you're on about, right, what am I going to do?
Well, imagine a future where the top of your lorry has got solar panels on it, and that could power you for continuously. You just park it outside, and it feeds a battery on board, and you can just go and go and go and go and go, and you never have to fill your lorry up with that stinking stuff again. It has to. I mean, if we can put a man on the moon, and we did it 60 years ago, then surely we can do that. It must be possible. The sun has made everything on Earth grow. It should be able to boil you a kettle, you'd think. Thanks, Keel. I hope your health improves. And that COVID, yeah, nobody's really talking about that anymore. It's as though it never really happened. It hasn't gone away, mind. And China, they're shutting down towns again. Soho, hello, Dino.
Oh, hey.
Dino.
Hi. I'd like to draw a parallel. I'd like to talk about this in parallel with what happens elsewhere. So the human being is a pretty fragile character, considering that from an evolutionary perspective, we grew up in a small tribal environment where trust was important. The social media situation is no different from fast food. It's crap. We know it's crap. We know that fast food is the reason why a lot of the metabolic syndromes exist. This is a kind of proven scientific data fact. Sugar and fat does a lot of harm, and a calorie is not a calorie. But it happens, and people eat it, and it's still sustained because of profits and stuff like that. Social media requires a similar sort of education. Why would you listen to someone you know nothing about, who has no academic credentials, be he from any part of the world? If he has, you can soon find out whether he has some standing. And I must say, in that perspective, social media in this country, at the current situation with what's going on in Ukraine, when you look at the press, it's unremitting, unrelenting, one-sided view of everything that's going on. The only place you can get a certain amount of balance is by people, including the current head of CIA in America, William Burns, former ambassadors, Professor John Mesher, and people like that, giving a counter-narrative saying that from 2008, when NATO was expanding east, when French and the Germans said that this was a crazy idea to expand into Ukraine because it would...
Hang on. Whoa. We seem to be skating off into a different argument entirely.
No, I'm trying to show that you would have never found the narratives that give you the reasons why the world's in a mess as it is for political reasons without hearing both sides. You don't hear both sides in the main media in Britain. You don't. You just don't.
I'm not sure that's true, because where have you heard that information, Dino?
So this information is on the net from William. I'll tell you who's given a little bit of a balanced view, and that's Al Jazeera. And sometimes Channel 4. You will not get it off others about
Al
what NATO has been.
Al Jazeera and Channel 4 are the mainstream media. I don't really know what you're talking about.
No, I'm talking about the bulk of the mainstream media, with newspapers as well as the BBC, ITV,
Channel 4 is one of the major channels in this country. It is the third actually biggest channel in this country.
And it's a respected. The point I was trying to make really is that in terms of seeking information, be it information of sorts that can be validated. Now, when I mention the people I mentioned, like William Burns or Professor John Mesmer.
Yeah. Well, how can you say that you can validate their claims but not anybody else's?
Because there are academics and historians.
But there's no end of academics and historians who are making the opposite point by your measure. So how can you say that one is validated and the other isn't, other than it agrees with the opinion that you arrived with?
Not at all. I'm saying that I would like to hear it debated. I would like to hear... You see, the thing is...
Okay, well, you know what, Dino? This is absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about. You should have maybe called us in the last hour when we were discussing that topic. But I think the point that he's making, in a very roundabout way, is that on social media you can get a whole rainbow of opinions, but by that measure it is very difficult to fathom which one is actually valid. Thornton Heath, hello, Noel.
Hello, Nick.
No.
Yeah, so I'll just turn the radio down, yeah.
Do you have a persistent cough?
No, not really, no.
Okay. All right.
I think it's a habit, you know.
Right.
Okay, Nick, do you remember you mentioned earlier that how could one person be holding a gun to 6 billion people's head?
Yes.
I think that was it. But it's more than one person. The problem started at the Arab Spring when the failure of the Obama administration to control ISIS.
Oh, and, it's Barack Obama's fault. I had no idea.
He did a lot of good, but then comes along the Russians. Okay, destroyed ISIS. So they had a lot of support in America. They had a lot of support over here, and then comes along Donald Trump, which was a savior for Putin. Do you remember when he was inaugurated? Putin phoned him and said, "Congratulations, Your Excellency." Do you remember that? You didn't hear that, no?
I don't remember anything of the sort, no.
But so supposing I phoned... Yeah, that's what he did. He said that, yeah. Supposing I phoned you and I said, "Hello, Nick," and then you replied, "Hello, Noel, Your Excellency."
Yeah.
You wouldn't do that, would you?
It's unlikely.
You put up a person on a higher plane than yourself. But he only did that in order to because he knows that Trump has got low mentality to get Trump on his side. You see. Okay. Well, within the first 6 months of Trump's presidency, he invited the Russians over, and after about 40 minutes, he kicked out all the Americans. And who was to say what happened in that meeting?
Yeah, we've got absolutely no idea. That part.
I personally believe that they opened a case and injected Trump with nanoprobes.
Well,
I seriously believe
that makes
a control
perfect sense. Yes.
And do you remember you had Simon Marks on about 2 weeks ago?
Can we talk about the nanoprobes? So Donald Trump's got Russian nanoprobes coursing through his veins in order to keep him in control.
It has gotten totally out of control.
Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Right. Exactamonto. Oral control drug. Do you remember Simon Marks said that 2 weeks ago that the majority of the Republican Party are pro-Russian? Or was it a Russian apologist or something? And who's to say that he did not take that case and administer to them?
Nanoprobes, right.
Yeah.
Okay, you're making a lot of sense, Noel.
Bing bong.
By which I mean none at all. Thanks a lot, mate. Romsey, hello, Mike.
Hi there, how you doing?
Good, thanks.
Great. I mean, very, very sad about the whole thing with this situation with Iran, and it's great she's coming back. But I truly think that Boris has got it wrong again, and we need to get a grip and start buying British. And what I'm talking about is the 325 million barrels of oil that we fought for in 1982 at the Falkland Islands when we took back our territory. There's 325 million barrels of oil there that's ours. Why are we going to these rogue places to buy oil? And if you say, well, we can't afford to mine it, then how can we afford £1.33 trillion to go carbon zero by 2050? And how can we afford to buy railways, between London and Manchester at horrific, costs when, we're printing money, we're getting deeper and deeper into debt, and we should stop and start buying British and get that oil out of the Falkland Islands, get all the oil out of Scotland, and stop doing deals with these dodgy countries. That's my view.
Well, what do you know about the oil? Why hasn't the oil around the Falkland Islands actually been sourced yet? Not that. We could argue all night long whether it's actually ours at all. I mean, it's 8,000 miles away. It's difficult to believe that you could really make a cogent argument about the islands or the water around them being ours. But go ahead.
Well, I believe they are. I think we fought for them in 1982. And they're on our territory, so why shouldn't we get the oil that belongs to us if it's ours? We keep making wrong mistakes. I mean, we've done some great things like leaving the European Union, but what haven't we done? Things like dropping corporation tax to a low level so we can be competitive and attract businesses in and produce revenue and corporation tax to pay for all this debt that we're clocking up with all the things that have gone on certainly for the last 2 years. And what we shouldn't be doing is buying oil from places like we are. I think we should have a rethink about this carbon neutral strategy and start getting our own stuff and being a bit more self-sufficient than relying on these other countries.
Right. Do you ever have a non-right-wing thought?
Well, is that right-wing? No, I think that's
I think pretty much everything you just said can go into that category. Yeah, pretty much. But thanks, Mike. Hampshire. Hello, Colin.
Hi.
Colin.
Hi. I just wanted to go back to your idea of this 10% tax rate.
Yes.
Nobody's ever going to take it to 10%.
No, I was just doing it at 10% for ease of maths.
No, I understand that. I do understand that. But the reason why people who have made huge fortunes have been probably started quite modestly, like the chap with the vacuum cleaners. I mean, he's taken his billions and factories away after being very successful in the UK.
Yeah.
But the point I would like to make to you is that if tax rates were obliterated altogether up to a certain level, in other words, let's say £25,000, at 25,000, if people had no tax at 25,000, but anything over that was then taxed at, say, and I'm just taking a figure off the wall, 30%.
Yeah.
In my perception, and I do work in this arena, everybody would pay it.
Rubbish.
Well, you say rubbish because that's a bit too dismissive.
Well, it's not dismissive, it's just true. It's human nature. If you had to write a cheque for whatever 30% of, is, say, £300,000, if you were making that kind of money, then you just wouldn't do it. You would do everything in your power to avoid doing that.
Just hold on. I don't think that's necessarily true. So
absolutely true. There's an entire infrastructure in the City of London to make that happen so that people who earn that kind of money do not have to pay the tax. And it's not that they don't want to pay as much tax, it's that they don't want to pay any tax. Hence the existence of all of these tax havens out in the middle of the bright blue sea with the Union Jack fluttering from their government buildings. It's not that they want to save a little bit of money, they want to save all of the money that they would have paid in tax, Colin, which you must know full well, being, as you say, in that business. Port Talbot. Hello, Ken.
Yeah, hello. Hello there.
Ken.
I just want a few thoughts about these people that are saying that we should start to fight the Russians in the Ukraine.
Yep.
Well, I don't know if anybody's seriously thought about how we would fight the Russians. I mean, militarily, all right, suppose we fought them back to their borders, if we were capable, which I doubt. What are we going to do then? How are we going to destroy their infrastructure, the means of production that they need to make their tanks, etc., and all the things we did to Germany?
Well, no, I don't think that would be the plan. The plan would be to get them out of Ukraine. I mean, they can do what they like in their own borders. We wouldn't sort of take the fight into Russia. I wouldn't think that would be, first on people's minds.
Okay, then what would stop them from coming right back again?
Well, the threat of being sent back out again.
That doesn't work, does it? Look at the Second World War. Look how far the Germans went. Look at Stalingrad, places like that. The Russians just rebuilt their forces, came right back through, all the way back to Germany and defeated them. To just hold them at their borders, it just wouldn't happen, would it?
Well, I don't see why not. Why not?
Well, because they would rebuild their forces.
Right, so would we.
And then start the thing all over again.
Yeah, and we'd do the same thing again. I mean, if it came down to an actual ordinary battle, conventional forces aimed at each other, then the West would beat Russia hands down, easy.
I don't think that's true.
What makes you think that it's not true?
Well, because of the weakness of the Western armies. I mean, the fact that we've let the Russians build their forces up for years.
The weakness of the Western armies. America spends more on its military than the next 8 top-spending countries put together.
So we're talking about an American war with Russia then, because
I thought you were talking about just us in this country.
No. We couldn't even start, would we? No, I'm talking about the whole scenario. We couldn't go into Russia. We couldn't destroy their industries. We
wouldn't want to. I don't think that would be a plan. The plan is to protect Ukraine, not to destroy Russia.
And that's another point, isn't it? If we fight them when they reach a NATO border, that fight will be in Ukraine anyway.
Well, perhaps, yeah.
And that would destroy Ukraine.
Well, we wouldn't be aiming at Ukraine. We would be aiming at them. It might destroy roads and the surrounding
and buildings and everything else. I mean, look at France. Tens of thousands of people were killed by us.
Okay, all right. Well, this is all very difficult then, Ken. So what should we do?
Yeah. What should we do? We should do nothing until we actually had a NATO country attacked,
and then
then we should try and stop the Russians from taking over that country. And that's it. We really shouldn't try and completely defeat them in a war, because we couldn't do it.
Well, we could do it. We've already been over that. If we have a war with Russia, then America will be involved, and then that's that.
Okay. You can agree with that.
Well, I am agreeing with it. I'm saying it, and I'm no military expert, Ken, any more than you are. But it seems likely that I'll say it again, if America spends as much as the next 8 top spending countries put together on their military, then it seems likely that they would prevail, unless their expenditure is on flower arrangements for the officers' mess. Thanks, Graham. Chertsey. Hello, Tony.
Hi there, Nick.
Tony.
In my world, it isn't an alarming possibility.
Oh, yes.
Because that's what I'm working towards.
What do you mean?
A moneyless society. Never mind about cashless. What about moneyless? So no exchange whatsoever. Think about that, Nick. So you don't need to pay for anything. Robots and artificial intelligence will do all the work. They don't need paying. So therefore, we don't need a money system. What about that, Nick? Come on.
Well,
I'm sorry to put you on the spot. But
you're talking science fiction. Can we talk science facts?
Oh, right, yeah. I thought you were going to say something else then, beginning with S.
I don't know what word you're thinking of.
Well, four letters.
Okay. Is that it? All right, thanks, Tony. Brentwood. Hello, Alex.
Hi, good evening.
Alex.
Basically, people are forgetting Ukraine's an extremely large country. It's like Germany. It's bigger than Germany and France combined. There's 42 million people in Ukraine.
I'm not sure it's bigger than Germany and France combined. It's about 2.5 times the size of Britain. But anyway, let's not get bogged down in geography.
Much bigger than that. Anyway,
I think it's exactly that size. But anyway, go on.
There is places for them to go within Ukraine itself. They're not even supposed to leave the country if they're men between 18 and 60. Women and children, fine. If they wish to come, no problem. But at the end of the day, we've got to be very selective as to who we let in. We can't afford to let men in who could go and fight for their own country.
Right, but that's not that they can't leave Ukraine, so they're not coming.
Well, let's see who turns up. The point is that it's a big country and there are places for them to go. That's all I'm saying. It's like Newcastle being bombed and then they all go off to Greece. Why wouldn't you want to stay within your own country?
Well, because it's been invaded by a man
Not all of it, part of it.
Well, yeah, but so far, the war's only a week and a half in.
Yeah, but it's only in a small proportion of the country. It's not everywhere.
Okay. Thanks, Alex. West Hampstead. Tim.
Hello.
Yes, Tim.
Yes. I was just wanting to remind your listeners that all that's going on now with the oligarchs and the sanctions and all that is absolutely no different from the time, and I remember I heard it visibly when Thatcher brought in the right to buy. The mayor of Hamburg phoned in, and I heard him on the radio say, you cannot run a country on the value of property and the city of London alone. Have you got that?
Well, Germany is much more diversified as far as spreading the wealth around the country is
Europe,
concerned.
Germany, I've lived there. When I was 17, I lived there. Because of their particular social history, has to work from the bottom up. We in this country, and I'm half English and half French, but I grew up and was born here, has always worked from the top down because of our divisive educational and class system, which the Europeans don't understand. And what's interesting now, my son's generation, I'm 79 now, so I've experienced and remembered a lot, and I'm an actor and I know about the theatre and stuff, I know how it evolves, and I've worked in all the cities we talk about with level.
He just forgot himself. He expressed himself in builders' terms. He was talking about levelling up isn't working, and I would bet every stitch of clothing I'm wearing right now that levelling up is never going to be a thing other than a talking point that the Conservative Party will use to make it look as though they're actually the caring Conservatives. Thanks for that, Tim. Vienna. Hello, Declan.
Hi, Nick. Thanks for taking my call.
Declan.
I just want to share an experience with my family. And you're saying holes in the system and stuff.
Yeah.
In the year 2000, my father set up a charity for Chernobyl orphans. And we would get them adopted in Northern Ireland.
Right.
Especially in County Down. And, of course, what you say, we kept them close together. You know, they do need this community spirit, that they're not alone, you know. And back then, there was no Facebook or anything, you know.
Right.
And it was run really successfully, you know.
Well, how did they keep them together? What was the process there?
People, the houses. People volunteered to take in 2 or 3 children.
Right.
You know, some volunteered to adopt them. You know.
Right.
But what happened was, when they got over the language barrier, you know, they couldn't they rebelled. You know?
How do you mean?
Why has that family got more money than me? Why don't you drive a car like that guy? You know? And they sort of couldn't understand the freedoms, or I don't know. But anyway, they rebelled. 3 of them ran away and got criminal records and stuff, you know. So my father actually gave Lukashenko golf lessons, and he just put a stop to it right there and then, you know. So,
not quite sure what that means. But that last part was somewhat confusing. But thanks, Declan. Streatham. Hello, Luke.
Hello. How you doing?
Good, thanks.
I would like to make the point. I do actually work in media. I would like to make the point that we regulate a lot of other things in society, i.e. driving, alcohol purchasing, that sort of thing. So there's, to me, no real reason why we should not be regulating social media in terms of age restrictions.
Right. What are you talking about? What kind of thing are you talking about for age restrictions?
Well, so you should be providing a driving license or some sort of identification before you can have a social media account. Therefore, that would prevent people under the age of 18 receiving or watching content that is not suitable for them, and it would also prevent a lot of the terrible behaviour, i.e. racism, that takes place on social media as well.
Well, would you also agree that people should be able to prove their age before they buy video games or films?
Well, yeah, they do have to do that.
Well, they don't really.
Well, if something is 15 rated, you have to prove that you're 15.
So I'm not sure you do, actually. You just go in and buy it, and are there any checks?
Well, that's the point of an age rating, is it not?
Well, it's the point of an age rating, but if you go to see a film that's aged, that's got a 15 certificate on it, is anybody actually checking your birth certificate when you go in? But let's not get bogged down in that.
Well, they should be by law, yeah. So it's down to down to whoever the shops are or the retailers are.
Okay.
So that's.
Well, what about books then? I mean, do you think that people should be able to, or should have to prove their age before they buy a book that has what might be considered adult content?
To an extent, absolutely. I mean, if a book has adult content, it is for adults, i.e. people over the age of 18.
Right.
So,
but who decides though? Because in America,
well, we're not in America. So who decides a game? Who decides a film? There's a regulation for it. There's a government body that regulates it. So the same people can do that for books, or in this case, social media.
Right. And if something is online that is considered damaging, or is the government has taken against for whatever reason, it disagrees with it. If it's to be excised online, should a book containing the same information be burned?
Well, book burning, obviously has, it obviously relates back to the Second World War. Book burning is more of a symbolic gesture rather than in our society today what you're suggesting. So I don't think it should be quite burned, but it should be regulated, and I can't see a logical reason why anyone that says, oh no, it shouldn't be regulated because it's government censorship is basically suggesting that humans should have access to every bit of, any human can have access to any bit of information anytime they want it at the palm of their hands. And for me, that's completely nonsensical.
Well, perhaps, but it depends on who's doing the regulating, doesn't it? Because Lady Chatterley's lover was once considered too obscene for the likes of you and me to gaze at it.
It's an interesting point, but again, the spread of books or the proliferation of books is very different to the internet.
Is it though?
Of course it is.
Well, it isn't really. It's just it's not really. It isn't really. It's just the dissemination of information by another method. I mean, I go back to the conversation I was having at the beginning of the hour, in that every new media is greeted by this kind of panic. And there's not much that's different about it when you think that it's really just words on a screen as opposed to words on paper. Wandsworth. Hello, Thomas.
Hello, lad.
Thomas.
How are you doing, all right?
Yeah. Okay.
I just want to talk about Boris Johnson and the NATO agreement.
You want to talk about Boris Johnson and the NATO agreement?
I think he should do more.
Do more what?
I think he needs to negotiate.
I think that's another... I think he switched his phone off with his earlobe. It's another one of those. It's another earlobe catastrophe.
Oh,
no. We'll never know. But thanks a lot, Thomas. That was excellent. Ipswich. Hello, Graham.
Hello, Nick. Thank you for taking my call.
Right.
Yes. Your last call, he didn't really put up a very good fight about what you were saying. Russia has definitely got more military. They're number one.
Than
China's the second.
What? Than what?
Than the United States and Europe.
Well, I'm not sure that's right. They have more military. More military what?
More military. Tanks alone is around about 12,400. And the only reason why we go back to the days of the Cold War that we would use the nuclear deterrent was to stop the Russian tanks from rolling into the Western hemisphere.
Right.
So where we are at the moment is that we're in a stalemate situation with Russia. Unfortunately, we are right, NATO is right, for not getting involved. The only way that I can see that Ukraine can win this, if they can, is to go into a guerrilla warfare like what happened in Vietnam with the Americans.
Right, well, I'm just looking at the military strength ranking, the global...
Number one.
The global firepower ranking. It lists all the countries. What is number one?
Russia.
No, the USA. So, I guess not. Thanks, Graham. Walthamstow. Hello, John.
How you doing?
Good, thanks.
Just before I say anything, I just want to say, what's going on in Ukraine is an absolute tragedy, so I don't condone going on there whatsoever, and it's to comprehend how to be handling the situation. But what I would say is, rhetoric being sort of publicised in the media at the moment about nuclear arms and chemical weapons and all these other aspects of this conflict are just adding fuel to the fire. Putin as a person, I don't personally see him who is crazy. I see him as an arrogant man who's been undermined every aspect, his political position for the last 20 years.
His political position has been undermined?
Yeah, in the sense that he has issues with NATO, he has issues with the gas pipeline. I think I mentioned it before last time. He has his own version of ideals of what he wants with the old Soviet states being brought back under his.
He has issues. Yes.
Yes, but this is a form of arrogance from his political position. He is at the top of his, his position in Russia. So it comes with the position.
Right. So what are you proposing, though?
Well, if you see what the conflict is currently about being undermined by the opposition in Ukraine. So it would be about Zelenskyy.
But he's not the opposition in Ukraine. He's the leader of Ukraine. He's the opposition to Russia. Right. But he's only the opposition. He's only the opposition to Russia because Russia invaded Ukraine. He wasn't the opposition to Russia before Russia invaded Ukraine.
The only way to end this conflict is to take out Zelenskyy because that's all that Putin wants.
Right. Okay. Just give him what he wants. All right, thanks, John. Bloomsbury, Sophia.
Good evening, Nick. It is true, as our point I was first making, is we are no longer in the EU, and therefore we have no obligation to take on any refugees. And we had a big discussion, and we all agreed, people seem to have forgotten, that the Ukraine and Russia were once our enemies, and therefore who would we let in if we take these people here?
Well, Germany used to be our enemy.
Yeah, but
we make up.
But the point is, somebody said maybe they've got poison gas in their pockets.
Well,
and
that seems unlikely, being as their mothers and children.
But whoever, and the thing is...
and what did you mean when you said now we've left the European Union, we have no obligation to take refugees? What's that?
We're not European, so it was to go to Europe.
Yeah, but we're still human beings. It's got nothing to do with the EU taking refugees.
But what is the point? We're human beings, and we've gone through COVID, we've gone through Afghanistan, and we've been separated from our loved ones for a year and a half. We don't want to take people into our family.
Well, some
my
people
middle
do.
name is Olive, like a lot of people, means love. I mean, they think of love all the time.
Yeah, I'm not detecting love pouring off you, Sophia.
Yeah, but if we're going to put $3.45 for that, surely that money should be available for the fuel taxes.
Right, so repel the refugees and we can take the money that we would have paid to give them a roof and we can spend it on fuel.
On our fuel bills. We're living here.
Right.
And
we could treat ourselves.
What are we trying to do? I mean, they're always singing about love, or is it we're trying to rule the world? Everyone said we're a much smaller country.
Well, we're not smaller than Moldova, for instance. They've taken over 100,000.
I know that, but that's right on the doorstep. We're still not there. We have our own people to consider about. As for taking into our family, we've been separated from our families.
Well, not everybody.
From mine for a year and a half.
Well, why have you been? Well, I mean, I hesitate to ask. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should just move on. Oh, all right then. Why have you been separated from your family for a year and a half?
You play for such beautiful music, wonderful, sweet family, and we don't know what people...
Okay, it's like I should have just gone with my gut instinct. All right, thanks for that, Sophia, whatever that was. Richmond, hello, Adam.
I just wanted to quickly call just to add some points to what you said, and I second your statement.
Oh, mobile phones, aren't they great? When will a mobile phone company actually make one of those things that you can use as a phone? Let's have a call in Tottenham. Hello, Tom.
What, Tottenham?
Tottenham.
Oh, right here. Look, I got to turn the speaker off. Sorry.
There you are.
Okay, I do beg your pardon.
I ran off for a minute. I had to take a call of nature. But you didn't need to know that.
A little bit too much information there.
I know. I'm very sorry about that.
Yeah,
Look, what
okay,
about the Tory party?
What about them?
Well, what do the Tories want? Them in power all the time? I don't think they do. They want an opposition. The Telegraph was blasting on about that a few years ago. And you were mentioning Corbyn, you know...
Wait a minute, wait. Back up. The Telegraph...
Okay, yes, I'm being confused.
You're being confused or confusing?
I'm being confusing.
You're being confusing, or... Because if you were being confused, that would imply that I am confusing you.
I got the right idea of what I was rambling on about, but I'm not being concise, which I was trying to be. Ask me a question. I think they're... Look,
when you close your eyes,
I think there are
when you close your eyes, Tom, what colour do you see? Do you see like paisley shapes, or like a pyramid with an eye on top of it, something like that?
Groovy. I'm afraid I've had telephonic problems.
Right. Well, that's a matter for you.
Have I lost you altogether?
No, I'm still with you.
And I needed you so badly.
You're dropping breadcrumbs behind you. I can follow you so far. Go ahead. That shut him up. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead, Tom. Speak to me. He's gone. In a nutshell, he said... Stockwell. Hello, Seb.
Oh, hi there, Nick.
Seb.
Hello.
Yes, Seb.
Hi. Completely agree with your latest bits about the computers at home and things like that. It's definitely not saving anyone any time.
No.
And we are all stressed. Everyone is.
Everybody is stressed.
But definitely what most people are doing is not having that one-to-one relationship that they used to have with the person sat across the way from them.
Nobody is remotely interested in speaking to the person that they're with. They're too busy looking at their phone, typing messages to somebody they aren't with.
Yeah, it's very sad. And I've lost quite a lot of friends through it, and I'm sure everyone else has as well. It's just really, yes, I'm sure it wasn't intended to be like that, but that's how it's ended up, hasn't it?
It's odd, though, that the internet is actually the best and the worst of almost anything you can think of. But I guess it's just the extremes of what human beings are like.
Yes, probably.
I mean, it's the best tool of information that has ever been invented, but it is also the best tool of misinformation that has ever been invented.
Yeah.
It's the best tool of freedom, but it's also the best tool of control and observation. Not observation of what is it when an evil organisation is peering at you all the time? What's that word?
Surveillance.
Surveillance, that'll do. We'll go with that one. It's the best tool of surveillance that has ever been invented. What your phone does not know about you is not worth printing. It knows more about you than you do.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Most definitely. So I was calling, actually, and it's a kind of... you asked the question, why do people that don't earn much money or have much money vote Conservative? And I thought, I know the answer to that. And because I've not got any money. And I did vote Conservative. I did also vote for Remain with Brexit.
Remain? Yeah. A Ramona?
Stop whining.
But it was a 50-50, and it was almost I had to flip a coin on the day of voting.
Right.
So I've gone.
Where's he gone? He just cut himself off. Phones should actually come with instructions. He's probably put himself on mute. He thinks I can still hear him because he's still there on the.
Yes,
there you are.
It's my earlobe. It just keeps doing it again. Another piece.
He's just done it again.
That's not working.
Your earlobe is cutting you off.
It presses the mute button. Can you believe it? I know.
Well, put us on this one time only. Put us on speakerphone.
Yeah, you're on.
How can your earlobe put it on mute? Doesn't your screen go black when you put it to your head?
Well, it's my ears at the side of my head, so I can't see what the screen's doing.
Well, that's a very good point. He's one of those people whose ears are at the side of his head.
Yes. No. Amazing.
You want to get one of these newfangled phones? Seriously, my screen shuts off when you put it to your head, and to stop that very thing. How old is your phone?
Well, I don't know. 4 years old.
Well, then it should have that facility. Maybe you've accidentally switched it off with your earlobe.
Maybe I have. Yeah. I'll have to look at my updates. I'm sure I'm up to date. But yes, it's a slightly older phone than most people have now, but it's a high up number.
Okay.
Without telling you what it is.
Right.
So going back to the original. So why do people vote Conservative? Well, because the other side causes even more problems.
Do they? In what sense?
So when Labour was in, my council tax doubled in 5 years. My the tax that I paid from my income threshold didn't go up for, was it 6 years, 9 years?
That doesn't sound right.
Yeah, Gordon Brown didn't put it up for 6 years, and then I think there was 3 years before that. So the tax threshold, so more of my money was just going into tax, and at the lower end. And actually, what the Conservatives did with the coalition was, really lift that quite high.
Yes,
from
Seb.
6,000 to 12.
Right, but
I know that's now stalled again.
Right. Okay. Well, let me tell you why that is a false argument. Because tax cuts overwhelmingly benefit the rich. If you earn £20,000, let's make it really simple.
Yeah.
Never mind about the tax-free amount at the beginning. So if you earn 20 grand and the tax is at 10%, then you pay 2 grand in tax.
Yeah.
If they reduce it by 1%, then you save 200 quid. If you are poor enough to earn 20 grand a year. If you earn £2 million a year, then you will have saved £2,000. No, wait, £20,000.
Yeah.
So tax cuts always benefit the rich. And then, of course, it's what they spend the tax on, which also benefits the poor. It's on welfare and care and the NHS and the police and the safety net for those balancing on the line of poverty and the majority of us who are just about getting by, which is what the countries with the happiest people do. They charge a bit more in tax and then they spend it on creating a happier people. It's this false argument that the Tories push, that the right wing always push, that if we reduce your tax, you'll be happier. But it's the opposite of that, because the vast chunk of the money that is freed up goes to those who are already rich, and those that are poorer, who rely on the state for all of the things I just mentioned, the safety net, they get nothing, because they have to cut that in order to feed the tax cuts for the rich. But it makes you feel as though you're getting more money. But then curiously, after a while, you think, well, yeah, but everything's worse and I'm less happy. So whose fault's that then? Tax cuts only benefit the rich. It's a false economy for those who have got little to vote for the party that is the party of the tax cuts. But thanks, Seb. Grove Park. Hello, Sam.
Hello, Nick. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi. Thank you so much for taking my call. Big fan of your show. I'm going to say something fairly controversial, but not sure. No, it's not that controversial. Relax. But I'm not sure sanctions will help, because sanctions only work when it's a democratic country. But when it's not, then it just hurts the people who live there, right? It will surely, yes, it might be inconvenient for the oil, but at the end of the day, the Russians themselves can't really go out and protest and elect a new leader. They don't have that option. So really, ultimately, it's on us as the British people to protect Ukrainians, right?
So, well, rather than actually get stuck in militarily, which we're told over and over again we can't possibly do because Vladimir Putin is mad enough to blow the world up, this is what our plan is, to starve them of their funds and their way of life that they've become used to, strolling around London's West End as though they own it, because of course they do.
Yeah, but the unfortunate part is it's just hurting the people who live there far more that it will hurt Putin and the oil cost. It's a fact. Like I'm originally Sudanese. My wife is East African. East European. She's from Lithuania. She has that massive fear of Russia. So this particular issue really hits home hard for both my wife's family and where I'm from, where a country that's been sanctioned for a very long time. Ultimately, the people in power don't feel the effects of the sanctions as much as ordinary people.
No, of course.
Right? So,
yeah. No, I completely agree. But if we're talking about just general sanctions on Russia, like, well, you mentioned it, or was that Tom who mentioned it? McDonald's, like McDonald's pulling out and them not being able to get a film on Netflix and not being able to go buy their Gucci bags. But I'm talking about the difference between the sanctions generally, which are going to hurt, the population as a whole, which is exactly as you say, the poor always suffer the most, or specific sanctions on specific people, oligarchs. Now, those are the people that Putin surrounds himself with. Presumably, those are also the people that are holding Putin's money for him. And the only way that Putin can make them cough up is if he maintains his grip on power, which might inform everything that we're seeing here. He's re-establishing, cementing in his grip on power such that he can get these people on the phone when he wants to access his cash. If he's not in power anymore, then they might not want to take his call.
That's where I'm unsure of whether or not sanctions will cause him to not be in power, because historically, from my experience, it doesn't work. It doesn't remove the people in power. So,
in other countries, I understand what you're saying. In other countries where it has been tried, it has not necessarily worked. But what else are we going to do? If we can't actually get stuck in militarily, then our options are slender. Orpington. Hello, Ray.
Hi, Nick. Will we end up considering conscription? Because how long does it take to rebuild a conventional army? If Putin does eventually subdue Ukraine, he's not going to go marching straight into Poland or Hungary or even Sweden. I mean, that's not in NATO, but it's pretty westernized. What he's going to do, he's going to test NATO's resolve by putting feet in some tiny former Soviet republic like Latvia. Because how many people in the West know where Latvia is? They say, isn't where Santa comes from? Oh, no, that's Lapland. Would they be prepared to see a nuclear war engulf their children to defend Latvia? What's Latvia to us? They'll say. I think he's prepared to test our resolve. So I think, there is, for the first time in my life, I think there is a real possibility now of a Third World War. But these rumours of bowel cancer, unlikely, because hundreds of years ago the bowels were supposed to be the seat of compassion, but are we giving his inner circle a hint? Prepare him a Novichok cocktail with his Smirnoff, I'm sure he still gets it, then give him a state funeral, take in the midst of devoting himself to Mother Russia, and then find another latter-day Gorbachev to bring sanity back to the situation.
Well, that sounds like a note of positivity to end on there, Ray. Thanks for that.